Cavazos, and I am an LPC-associate virtual mental health therapist from the state of Texas. So in today's video, we're going to have a really chill, chatty video where we're going to be talking about all things how to disconnect from work. And I'm also going to be sharing some of my favorite cozy hobbies with you that help me personally disconnect from work. So get nice and comfortable, grab a snack or your favorite beverage or your lunch if you're currently on your lunch break, and let's go ahead and get into this video. Not my tea being too scorching to even drink right now, oh my gosh. Okay everyone, so this was a much requested video from you all. Some of you have been leaving comments and also DMing me questions related to how do I disconnect from work. I'm really worried because I'm going into this career field and I've heard terrible things when it comes to work-life balance, and I don't know what to do. You know, how can I start prepping for that? Is there hope, or is my life basically going to be crazy busy and I won't even have time to care for myself? And so the reality is it depends. But my hope is to give you some tools and different examples today so that regardless of where you find yourself working, even if self-care and taking time to care for yourself and balance out your schedule is going to look different for each of us, I still want to at least leave you hopefully with some semblance of some tools and strategies as to how to care for yourself and make sure that you don't burn out. And so all of these things are coming from a therapist who definitely experienced burnout back in the day when I worked case management and when I was a facilitator working in community mental health. So as I'm making this video, I not only have therapists in mind, but I also want to have other mental health professionals in mind, so case managers, facilitators as well, and anyone in a mental health related field. As much as we're told that we should prioritize ourselves and self-care, it gets to be really annoying when we're not really shown how to do that though, right? Like, where and how would you like us to fit that in? And so I'm gonna share some hard truths with you all of what that could mean, and also give you some examples regardless if you have more time in your day or if you literally only have like 5 to 15 minutes. So before we even get into how to disconnect from work, let's lay the foundation, right? What are some tools that are going to help me even get there? Because maybe you find yourself feeling very overwhelmed in grad school or post-grad already working. You're like, I'm looking at my schedule, I have no idea how I'm going to fit this in. And so the first thing I would say is take stock of where you can begin to delegate some things. And so what I mean by that is that one of my biggest regrets when I was a case manager slash facilitator, I really forced myself and pushed myself to meal prep. And that was my one thing that I really was into at the time, really trying to take care of my health. And it just took up so much time to meal prep, when really what I wish I would have done is delegated that and pay for some pre-made meals. So going into like a Fork to Fit, for example, is one of the chains that we have locally where you can go in, purchase your meals or have them delivered to you. So that is another example of delegating, right? That's time that we're cutting away, especially if you're a very busy person, having them delivered. And yes, that is an added expense. It is a worthy investment because it cuts out some time for you. It also cuts out worrying, which also takes up our time and energy, right? Because if you're consistently worried about what am I going to eat? How am I going to make it? When am I going to make it? But even if you enjoy cooking, if you're working community mental health and you're working a very busy side of community mental health where you have very high turnover rates and just a higher quota when it comes to the clients that you have to see, I highly recommend delegating that out. One huge less thing that you have to worry about. So that is one tip that I have for you all. Before we get into this, think about what kind of things can I delegate? Who in my life can I accept help from? There are genuinely people in your life who are trying to help you out and support you during that time. Let them help you and support you during that time. Whether that be cleaning, maybe that's your stressor. Another way that I personally like delegating to is setting up phone alarms as reminders. So whether that be as a reminder for my lunch break, for me to eat my meals, reminders for me to wake up, for when I go to sleep, and also just scheduling in your self-care time, especially if this is very much new to you and you already don't know where you're going to fit in. Personally, it helps me so much to be able to just schedule in the time. So for example, On Mondays, I for sure know that I do not see any therapy clients or consultation clients. So I have a scheduled time where I work in the morning, and then when I'm done with work, I have self-care time, my free time, whatever it is that I want to do, whether it be I want to go out and enjoy something, or I want to stay in and do a self-care activity or a hobby. And with my current lifestyle, I have a lot more time to practice self-care, and it's something that I practice daily in different kinds of ways, and I'll share some examples with you all later. And I get to spend more time definitely practicing self-care and doing hobbies that help keep me healthier and take care of my mental health. But back in the day, I'm trying to rewind, back when I was in grad school, and especially when I worked case management or I held a job while I was in grad school, the time that I had was very minimal. And I'm talking, I would still try to practice some kind of a self-care activity, but it would usually be like one activity for like 20 to 30 minutes maybe. It wasn't a lot of time that I had, and some of my favorite activities during that time were like taking care of my plants. So I would have a little morning where I would water all my plants, you know, before I would have to commute to school or log on to school. Or I used to love blasting music or listening to a podcast when I would be commuting to work. Shower time, blasting music, my time when I would get movement in. So I didn't have a lot of hobbies during that time, and those were my go-to ones that I really enjoyed, that I knew I was familiar with. Because I was familiar with them, it didn't stress me out to try to learn something new or do something that was like really crazy and that would be very time consuming. So if all I could do was get in a nice walk outside or to go to the gym, that was good for me. I was happy, and I would try to just habit stack. So like listen to a book or listen to music while I was doing that, and it just made it so good. Visit family, you know, get some social self-care in time so I can see other human beings other than the people that I would see at work and at school. And so it wasn't very frequent, but I tried to make time for that, time to spend time with my husband or with my sibling, you know, and it was just really good, a good way to de-stress. Which leads us now into the tips of how to disconnect from work, right? How do I actually do this now that I've set the foundation with thinking about what tasks I can delegate, freed up some time and mental energy for me to even consider now, right? What I want to do with that time. So first thing might be something that you've heard a million times before, and it might seem super simple, but it's really important, especially if you have a busy schedule. And so my tip for you all is to create a routine for yourself, even if it's not every single day. Having some kind of a routine that you can look forward to, whether it be one hobby or activity that you can look forward to start your morning or to end the workday with, to unwind. So whichever you'd prefer. If you have time for both, that's great. Currently, I do make time for both, and it's something that I prioritize now that I have my private practice. But I think back to younger me, right, who just had so much on her plate, and I really had to habit stack in order to really get like a good amount of self-care time in. So what that meant would be like I would be loading the dishwasher while blasting music or watching a movie or a favorite show in the background, versus maybe loading the dishwasher and then trying to read or listen to music, which just takes up more time. And if you can do that, that's great. But again, I promise to share tips with you all in case maybe you didn't have that much time. So as you're prepping breakfast, you know, giving your mind time to just relax and decompress and have something that you can look forward to. So do not make yourself listen to a book that you hate or listen to an educational book. If that's not something you're enjoying, allow your mind time to actually rest from doing and from having to solve things, right? From problem solving. Allow it time to just enjoy things. Personally, I love listening to and reading books that are like romance, fantasy. That just allows my mind time to just be in a fictional world and just have fun and be creative and imaginative. And it's such a nice break. And especially on days when, because I have a lot of client notes or I've done a lot of reading for work. I just want to be able to maybe listen to something and give my eyesight some rest so I can go ahead and just listen to something while I walk. And that to me is just my favorite thing in the world, to be out in nature while I'm listening to something, whether it be music or a book. So set a routine for yourself that you can enjoy. One of my current routines is me and my sister planned it out so we walk 3 days out of the week together. We had been doing mornings, and I think we're going to be transitioning into evenings now. So your routine can transition with you. If you're trying something and you notice you're not liking it, switch it up. You do not have to stick with something that you're not enjoying, because don't get me wrong, when you're first setting out to try a routine, not every bit of it might be enjoyable. Like, none of us enjoys waking up crazy early to necessarily walk, but the act of doing it and being in the habit of it and having things that we look forward to while we're doing it, like talking about our books, listening to music and listening to our books, these things bring us joy. So waking up early is worth it. So if you need to set an alarm on your phone to remind you about your routine, do that. Whatever you need to do. But like I say to my therapy clients as well, just first get into the habit of showing up to do something. So for example, when it comes to the 3 days of walks, especially when you're first getting started, it doesn't matter if you do it for an hour or if you do it for 10 minutes. You know, as long as you're showing up. So I know when we first got started, it would be like a 20-minute walk and we would call it a day, right? To work up to doing that and just getting used to that new routine. And now sometimes we walk way longer than that, or sometimes we do walk 20 minutes, and that's okay. The most important thing is showing up to your routine and having that consistency. And even if you were to get sick or something came up with work or with family or with anything you have going on, you're able to still come back to it. You know, that's how I view consistency. It's not necessarily going without fail, but even when things go awry, can you gradually come back to the habit that you've created for yourself and the routine you've created for yourself? So this goes out to my type A personalities and people who are perfectionists. Focus on creating the habit, not on being perfect at it, because that's not real. You know, things are going to come up with grad school, whether it be projects that come up or when life just deals you a shitty hand. Things happen that you didn't plan for. So focus more on just gradually showing up and creating the habit, because when we focus so much on perfection and doing things perfectly, we miss out on actually doing these things, because it's not a realistic standard, right? If we're trying to go for perfection, so we just self-sabotage and we set ourselves up for failure because it's not something that we can reach to begin with, right? And then we kind of reinforce that for ourselves, like, look, I knew I couldn't do it. I knew I couldn't do this routine or this habit, ya pa que? Why even continue with it, right? And so it's important to also work on the mindset aspect of that, which we're going to get into in the next tip, but working on our mindset when we're approaching self-care and hobbies and things that we utilize to detach from work, which leads me into a hard truth, right? That we have to come into a place of acceptance of, and it's that sometimes we're not going to be able to give 100% to our workplace or to our academics if it means taking care of ourselves. And that is a tough pill to swallow if you are a perfectionist or a recovering perfectionist or a recovering people pleaser. Like, that alone is triggering, you know, as is. But it's an important thing to gradually come to a place of acceptance of, and to monitor when it comes to our self-talk. Hey, it's okay for me not to give 100% to my workplace or 100% loyalty to my academics, and it's necessary for us to care for our mental and physical health. It's just impossible, you know, for us to give 100% to everything, which means that we also can't always give 100% to our self-care either, right? Which leads me into the not focusing on perfecting something or going without fail, but knowing that, you know what, some days I'm going to prioritize school a little bit more. Some days I'm going to prioritize family time or personal self-care time a little bit more, and creating that realistic routine for yourself where you have some days where you give a little bit more to the other things. And as hard as it is, gradually accepting that some days or sometimes during the day something is going to have to give, and that's okay. That's just reality, right? With everything going on, you know, I think something that I always used to say to myself in my early 20s was, how do people fit all of this in? How do people do all of these things? And the reality is that they don't. You know, you have to pick and choose each day the things that you want to prioritize that day, which means that some things won't get the full attention, or you might not be able to get to some of those things, you know, in that day. And again, can be a very hard pill to swallow, but the sooner we come to accept that, the healthier and more time and energy we'll also have, and we'll be in a healthier mental state to be able to approach these things with gentleness for ourselves, right? That's super important. And if you need help with this, I would encourage you to maybe go to therapy yourself, which leads me into my next tip, which is checking in with what you truly need. Right? What do you need? Not what other people need or what is currently trending on TikTok or on social media, because you're going to get so many different opinions, right? About what hobbies you should partake in and like all kinds of ways to take care of your own mental health, but truly check in with yourself and ask yourself what you need. Maybe your job or day already involves so much physical activity that you're not needing to prioritize so much physical activity in your days. You're actually needing more recreational self-care activities. So maybe video games, puzzles, knitting, what have you, different activities, right? So checking in with yourself is very important. For someone else, they might have a very sedentary lifestyle. So they're noticing, you know what, I'm not feeling too good. I need to get some movement in. I can tell that I'm being too sedentary in my day. So it's so important to not necessarily compare yourself to other people, but to check in with what you truly need. And so one big one for me during grad school and when I worked that job that I told you all about back in the day, I had like almost zero recreational self-care activities. I remember taking a little survey in grad school. It's a huge reality check for me. I was like, no wonder I'm miserable. No wonder I hate my life right now. And I'm so sad and depressed over here and anxious, you know, because every day just involves so much high responsibility driven things. My mind doesn't get a break. It doesn't get time to relax. Of course, I am dying and withering away, you know? So definitely a very important thing to take some time to take stock of what you need. And so the next tip is to really work on your own self-talk, right? Because we have a career field where we are teaching other clients to learn how to monitor their own self-talk and how to be empowered and create autonomy for themselves. And so it's really hard to be able to teach that if we're not living that, right? If our clients are coming in each time to session and we're miserable and they can tell, ya valió la cosa, there's no point, right? Because we're coming off as hypocrites. It's like we're sitting here and trying to help and teach others when we're not taking our own advice. And again, that doesn't mean that we have to be perfect at it, because some sessions too with my own therapy clients involve talking about how hard it can be, you know, some days to practice self-care, and I try to be real and honest about that. But I have also gradually found things that work for me to where I prioritize it more. And sometimes that has meant quitting a job that was toxic, that completely led to my burnout, and there was no amount of self-care that could have helped me through that. And that's another hard truth to accept, you know, that even if I would have been practicing self-care, the place was just not right for me. The environment was just not right for me. And so that's something to consider for yourself. If you are showing up to work each day and no matter what you try to do, you hate going, you hate it so much, at that point, I had to make the decision of even working for a job that was outside of my field, completely different. I was like, let me try doing something else because I'm extremely unhappy. And so that's a hard truth, but something that's really important to also contemplate. At the end of the day, if you are depressed, anxious, miserable, and you're in this toxic work environment, it may be time to consider another option. And don't get me wrong, that was a really hard decision to make. Like, I took a pay cut. It was hard, but at the end of the day, I gradually started to recover from my burnout, and that took over a year. You know, and that job that paid me so well, it wasn't worth it. It was not worth the hospital visits after, the doctor's visits, you know, everything that I had to deal with after. No amount of money is worth that. Like if you can make enough to where you're just meeting your basic needs, you're able to take care of yourself. If that's what you need to do, that's what you need to do. I feel like when we compare ourselves to other people, that's also something that is a huge struggle, especially in the academic sphere. We have to be honest with ourselves on what's actually going to make us happy and what we actually need, even if that looks differently from what our peers are doing, you know? Because at the end of the day, a hard truth is that it is a lot harder to disconnect from a toxic work environment. So if you're always on call, you know, if you're always having people text you or call you from work who aren't respecting your boundaries, I feel like it's also really hard to disconnect from work if our self-identity is tied to our work. So if you have trouble believing that, you know what, regardless of what job I'm working, I have worth. Regardless of my academic career, regardless of my degree, regardless of where I work, I have inherent worth, period. Right? If we don't truly believe that, and that's not a core belief of ours, then that can be a huge reason also as to why maybe it's really hard for us to say goodbye to a job instead of prioritizing our own mental health and our own needs, because we might be questioning, well, who am I without this job? Who am I without this academic career? Who am I if I'm not making a certain amount of money, right? So that is something important to also maybe work through in therapy or take some time to work through, you know, personally, because if not, then we're going to be making decisions based out of that place and out of that fear, right? And so if no one's ever told you this before, I hope you come to believe and know that you have inherent worth, period. You know, that job, if it is killing you, if it is toxic, leave that shit. Regardless of where else you have to work, as long as it is a healthier work environment for you, you deserve that. You do. Even if that means that you can't afford a lavish lifestyle or take a break from doing other things, whatever that means, as long as you're alive and healthy, that matters more than anything in this world. Which leads me into my next tip, which is setting healthy boundaries, right? Knowing what you actually need so you can begin to set those healthy boundaries for yourself. And so what that looks like for me is I only have certain days where I see my therapy clients, certain days where I do certain work so that I have time to practice self-care, right? If I wouldn't organize my schedule, then I would just be having to deal with emails, texts, and a lot of different things throughout weeks. So I need certain days to be able to actually log off of being on work mode. Some other healthy boundaries that I set for myself are also like within conversations, and this is the hardest one for me actually, but like in regards to family, in regards to like friendships and different things, being able to say no or being able to say, you know, I can't really talk about this right now because I need a mental break from problem solving or from worrying. And so sometimes that might mean that I don't need social time, right? I need some more alone time or time to myself to recuperate. So being able to know what you need and set those healthy boundaries for yourself to stick to those boundaries too, right? Which leads me into the last bit of this video, which is some of my favorite cozy hobbies, some of the things that I've gradually learned over the years to enjoy, because some of these things, honestly, I had never done. Some of them I had, but I love them so much and they help me just stay grounded and take some time to care for myself and to disconnect from my work identity, you know, and just step into who I am outside of work. That is a huge thing. So if no one's ever asked you this before, who are you outside of grad school? Who are you outside of being a therapist? Or who are you outside of work? And if you don't know the answer to that, you don't know what you enjoy outside of that, this is a great time to start exploring that. You deserve to explore that and you need to, you know, because if you're starting to notice the depression, the anxiety, feeling that it's incredibly hard to disconnect to work, it's that invitation, right? That it's time to really get to know who you are outside of your work and academic identity. So if you're starting from ground zero, or maybe you're not, I think a good tip is to maybe create a Pinterest board of possible cozy hobbies. So I'm personally a very visual person. So having images or videos and things that I can look at that inspire me is really helpful. So create a Pinterest board for yourself. Some of my favorite cozy hobbies are playing video games. So these are some of my current favorite video games. I love Disney Dreamlight. It is my jam. I love it so much. I really want to play like the Harry Potter Legacy game, so that will probably be next month. But I grew up playing video games and I rediscovered my love for it like in my mid-20s, you know, and it's something that just really has gotten me through some really tough times, and especially like through 2020 and that time period when I was an intern and in practicum. Having my Nintendo Switch that I could play during my lunch break to decompress was so fun for me and so needed. So personally, I love playing video games that are pretty low stakes, where I could just literally like adventure around or do little things that don't always involve like big quests or anything like that. A more recent cozy hobby that I got into was coloring. So coloring books, again, rediscovered that because I used to love drawing and coloring as a kid, and I found like some adult coloring books. And so I would say that the key thing here is find coloring books that you actually could enjoy, like specific themes that you might enjoy. Like for example, I have a Wednesday one, I have a Bobby Goods one, because back in the day I tried getting like a specific mindfulness meditation type one, which is like really on the nose. Like coloring itself is already a mindful activity. You know, I didn't have to go that on the nose, and I realized that I'm not the kind of person who can do things that are that on the nose. You know, when it comes to mindfulness, like I need to be able to enjoy it. So if I have something that connects to like a nostalgic thing for me or a comforting thing for me, cállate, like that is enough. So if I have a theme that I can enjoy, that makes my day. I love it so much. Some other recent ones are Legos. So this is one of my therapy clients actually got me into, because I had always wanted to try, you know, putting together Lego sets, and I never got into it. But one of my clients talked about it, and I was like, stop, say less. I want to try that now, because she showed me some of the Legos that she had created. And so I went down a rabbit hole, right? And I found some, and there's actually some really affordable ones. So you don't have to get like a big one. There's some that are like $7.99, right? And especially if you're on a budget, you can find some really cute ones that are on theme, depending if you like a floral theme, a Disney theme, Star Wars, Harry Potter. Like there's different fun things that you can choose from. I'm not a puzzle girly, but if you're into puzzles, there's also puzzles that aren't like 1,000 pieces. There's like 500 piece ones, or even less if you want like a little mini puzzle. And that could be a whole thing, right? Where you work on a little bit of your puzzle like each day, or you add on to it throughout your week or something like that. I don't know. If you're possibly into puzzles, or you don't know if you are, you want to give it a try, I suggest definitely trying some of these things, because I've tried puzzles, cannot get into them regardless. Like they have to be like little mini ones, you know? So find activities that you can enjoy, and the only way to know is to try them. Another huge one is reading. Stop, because the day that I rediscovered my love for reading as an adult just changed my world, and I went into like gradually physically reading. So graphic novels is a huge one for me personally, especially if you work the type of job or you're in grad school and you can't really do a lot of reading, you know, outside of the academic reading that you already do. Graphic novels involve more pictures. It's more visual, right? You get to see more of a story. So think kind of like a comic book, but a little bit longer story, and the artwork is usually very beautiful and really fun depending on the graphic novel. And I also wanted to share with you guys, if you don't already have this, like write this down, get it now as we're doing this video. And this is just a good resource to know for your own therapy clients too, and especially if you work in community mental health, because I would have killed to know about this as a kid. If it was something that was offered, this would have changed my world completely, especially if you're someone who doesn't have access to a library, or you can physically drive yourself or go in. You can get a free online library card if you live in Texas, and you don't have to live anywhere near these libraries. I'm going to put them up here on the screen. And once you get your online library card, which is literally done in like less than 5 minutes, you can do it super quick. Then you go and download the Libby app, your app of choice, and you connect your little code on there, and instant access like if you were physically in the library. So you can listen to audiobooks, you can read books on your phone or on your tablet. It's literally such a game changer, and it's huge, especially if you're someone who commutes, whether you're a case manager or a therapist who who commutes into work. You can listen to this while you're on your drives. You can listen to this if you're habit stacking or while you're working out, and it is a game changer. And if you've never read a book for fun, especially if reading physical books is really intimidating to you or having to read more, being able to just listen to a story and relax or eat your meal, go for a walk, it's the best thing. It is so much fun. And again, for some, you might try and be like, no, I loathe it, I hate it, it's not for me. That's okay, but I still wanted to share it with you all because this is something that is free. Like, you could literally go pay for this service, but you can check out books for free. It's through the library, so not only are you saving money, but it's something that can help you save time. And it's an added resource for you to know about. Honestly, it's changed the lives of so many of my own therapy clients because they didn't know what kind of self-care activities to get into, and now it's like their lives. They love talking about books. So I cannot recommend this enough. Definitely give it a try. There's so many different kinds of books that you can choose from. There's new releases. It is so fun. And so if you want to take some time to also read some self-help books, you can do that, but please give yourself time to do a fun activity and to step away a bit from having to be in that academic sphere. Our minds need that too. So I already said nature walks, but that's a huge one for me. I need to get some movement, whether it be at the gym or a nature walk. It's just a habit that I've created. It was the most accessible thing for me as a kid and growing up that my family got me into. Like, if I was stressed with school, the way that my dad knew how to help me was to take me to the park late at night and go for a walk to de-stress, you know? And so that just became a huge habit for me, and it's something that I enjoy. And if you've never tried it, highly recommend. There's people in my life who had never tried it and we're doing it now and they are living. And lastly, I thought I would just leave you with a whole nice list of possible cozy hobbies that you could get into or give a try. Definitely pause to read or take a screenshot if you need to. But I really hope after watching this video you feel encouraged and you have some tools and some direction, right, as to where to go. Take some time to really brainstorm and treat this as you would treat anything else, like work, anything else that you need to prioritize, and take some time to think about what you want to do and gradually ease yourself into it. Because at the end of the day, something that was really important for me, and maybe it will be for you as well, especially if you're struggling with this, is that I didn't want my life and my days to feel like, when I looked back on my life, I had no good memories other than just work-related memories or school-related memories. And don't get me wrong, for a long time in my life, like, that occupied so much mind space, and that's all I can think about, and that's all that was really there. And so it was really important to start cultivating and creating for myself these little moments that I could enjoy. And now I have other memories, right, that occupy my mind space. And then when I look back, I have these good memories and things that remind me that my life wasn't all work, you know, and my life wasn't all school, because we spend so much time doing those things. So even if you cultivate a couple minutes out of your day to be able to have something that you look forward to, it is game changing in the long run. It's something that keeps your own mental health cared for. Personally, today, how I make sure to do that is I only see 9 to 12 clients within my work week as a mental health therapist, having my weekends off, my Saturday, my Sunday, and then my Monday, where it's just dedicated to no physical contact. So I hope this video left you feeling encouraged and gave you some ideas as to what you can think about. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new to my channel, I hope that you'll consider subscribing. Thank you so much if you have. Take care of yourself, and I will go ahead and see you in my next video. Bye everyone.